my love of polls has not dwindled in the slightest. And I noticed the other day that I have the option to add quizzes into videos, and I have never been more excited. So I'm restarting or reviving or something my Twisted Would You Rather series, where I give you a bunch of themed questions with the slight twist that every character matchup has been decided purely by RNG, leading to some wacky combos and some surprisingly lore accurate ones. In this installment, all of the questions will be Heartslabyul themed, and after the 10 question gauntlet is over, I'll reveal my choices and why I chose those boys. However, you can always ignore my ramblings and just play the game if you'd like. Due to the quiz feature needing a correct answer as well, I have set my picks to come up for that. So you could also try to guess who I picked if you want, or you can pick your actual choices so we can get some sweet, sweet community data going. Or you can ignore the little box below the description entirely if you don't want to participate in the quiz. So many choices and so little time. Naturally, there are no actual wrong answers here, and I'd absolutely love to hear your thoughts and rationales for your picks in the comment section down below. Now then, if y'all are ready, we can start with our very first question. Would you rather rock pink cheetah jumpsuits to feed the flamingos with silver or deuce? Would you rather sneak a cat into an birthday party with Vil or Floyd? Would you rather run around Octavanel's lounge after getting caught in the rain with Riddle or Trey? Would you rather race through the hedge maze with Grim or Iria? Would you rather get collared for tomfoolery with Cater or Malleus? Would you rather attend the Flowers Spring concert with Lilia or Silver? Would you rather sing the Hedgehogs a song with Sebek or Jack? Would you rather paint the roses red with Azul or Jack? Would you rather pick flowers from the garden on any day except Wednesday with Jamil or Ace? Would you rather replace something you stole with Rook or Grim? Have you locked in your choices? Are you satisfied with them? If so, then let's compare notes. But quickly, before we do, I must mention that I'll be passively mentioning some EN server story content, as well as a tiny bit of anime content, so there will be some spoilers ahead. Now then, our first question was, would you rather rock a pink cheetah jumpsuit to feed the flamingos with silver or deuce? The wheel spoiled us with a canonical answer in the form of Deuce, since his recently released sleepwear card shows him in this iconic jumpsuit that was teased all the way back in book 2. And that was the inspiration for this specific question. However, due to this card, we already know what Deuce looks like in this outfit, so I think it would be a lot more fun to choose Silver here. Silver is no stranger to strange outfits, as evidenced by one of the ending shorts of the Heartslabyul anime, as well as White Rabbit Fest. Ortho and Silver pretty much are the only people who are chill with the rabbit costumes, and I think Silver even talks about Lilia putting him in all sorts of outfits during that event, if I'm remembering correctly. So the concept of this task wouldn't really faze him, I think, making it a much easier sell, allowing me to see yet another person in this glorious, iconic getup. The two of us will have no experience with this task and perhaps no idea what we are doing either, since neither of us are in Heartslabyul. But Silver is really good with animals, even being able to calm one of the testier equestrian club horses. So even if we make a couple of mistakes, I think the flamingos would be understanding. The next question was, would you rather sneak a cat into an birthday party with Vil or Floyd? Yet again, the wheel has blessed us with the perfect opportunity to unleash chaos with the perfect agent of chaos, Floyd Leach. So that's who I'm going with. Rule 23, told to us during the prologue, dictates that cats are not to be brought to any formal festivities. So letting one loose at an unbirthday party should ruffle some feathers and perhaps even turn a little goldfishy red. That's something I can easily see Floyd getting behind regardless of the consequences, provided he's in the right mood. And I think with him by my side, I might be able to get out of a collaring because I have a funny feeling that Riddle's rage would be laser focused onto the eel. Unless, of course, Floyd points the finger back at me, saying that something like I told him to do it or I came up with the idea, which would be true, but it would also redirect Riddle's ire and I would not live to tell the tale because not only did I, a guest, break the rules, but I also brought Floyd into Heartslabyul, and both of those things are crimes punishable by death. However, all of that hassle beats the alternative of trying to convince Vil to pull this prank in the first place. The only scenario I can see the Pomfiore House Warden agreeing to this plot in would be after Riddle somehow crossed Vil in some sort of way. But even then, I suspect that Vil would take a much more elegant approach to his revenge. He's got better things to do than release a cat into a tea garden, regardless of how funny the resulting chaos might be, so it's going to be Floyd for me. Our next question was, would you rather run around Octavanel's lounge after getting caught in the rain with Riddle or Trey? When the wheel stopped on Riddle for this one, I could not stop myself from laughing because he's the poor boy who had to endure this exact action after he got caught in the rain his freshman year, since it's the rules requiring him to dry himself by running under the sea. A spectacle that was to the amusement of many and embarrassment of one, an embarrassment that Riddle vowed to never repeat. Pushing Riddle into the rain to force him to participate in this activity would not only be cruel, but it would also result in your untimely demise. Therefore, I'm going to pick Trey instead. The added benefit of a Trey is that he seems more likely to abandon this activity halfway through, which would be perfect for my non-athletic self. If we ran around a little bit and then happened to run into a blow dryer, there's not really much we could have done to prevent that device from drying us off, right? As long as Riddle isn't supervising, we'd be fine, and as long as we padded out our time correctly based on Riddle's experience, he would likely be none the wiser. Would the Octa Trio hold this little loophole over our head and demand a much more taxing favor in the future? Absolutely. But I'm sure whatever they have planned couldn't be as bad as 8 hours of straight running, right? Queen's rules or not, I ain't doing that much running. No way, no how. In fact, that sort of never-ending exercise would likely end me, so it's a hard pass. Perhaps there is even a world within this hypothetical scenario where Trey and I go to the lounge for a bit and refresh ourselves with a nice cold drink. Perhaps. Maybe we can even somehow wrangle Azul into saying something that would make our purchases count towards our debt. Much to think about with this one, but I'll leave the rest of the hypotheticals to themselves for now. Our next question was, would you rather race through the hedge maze with Grim or Edea? Do I want the little stinker who is zippy or the introvert who can't climb stairs? What a tough choice. The real question here is whether or not I want to win. Because if I don't care about winning the race, then Grim would be a good opponent since he's really fast and likes to brag. He could zip through the mage, and assuming he doesn't get stuck somewhere, he'd be able to claim the crown pretty easy. The gloating afterwards would be annoying, but this is also Grim, the dire beast whose attention span isn't the best, so he'd likely find something else soon enough to puff out his chest over. Conversely, if I wanted to win, picking Edea is a surefire way to do that. I don't think Edea would even participate because not only do you have to get him out of his room, you have to bring him to a dorm full of bright, shiny extroverts, and then you need him to run around like a lab rat in a maze. None of that is appealing to Edea at all. It is much more likely that you'd end up winning by default and never actually racing. And if by some miracle Ortho was able to drag Edea to the maze, the kid would probably walk his way into a corner and lament at how unfortunate it is that he is stuck and how there's nothing else he could possibly do from this position besides his mobile dailies. Oh, what a world, what a world. I'm personally not all that competitive, so I don't particularly care to win. Meaning if I picked Edea, the two of us would almost assuredly do the exact same thing, and someone from Heartslabyul would have to come find us after an hour or so had passed. Or Riddle would move the rose bushes to give us a clear exit. At which point I think we'd actually get quite competitive. But both scenarios do feel rather uninspired, no? Therefore, I think I'm going to go with Grim here, because as long as I put in some effort at the front, Grim will be none the wiser and he'll get something to gloat about, so it'll be a win for both of us. Our next question was, would you rather get collared for tomfoolery with Cater or Malleus? This one is tough because canonically Cater has never been collared, and I do not want to take that from him, but I also don't think Malleus can be collared unless he wills it to be so. Like, I legitimately think if Riddle tried, the metal would just bounce right off the dragon, because Leona was able to do that in book 2, and Malleus is canonically much stronger magically than Leona, so there's no way Riddle is gonna pull that off randomly. However, neither one of these guys seems up to the level of tomfoolery required to get yourself collared either, so I can't really justify things that way either. I can see a scenario where Malleus ends up unintentionally breaking a bunch of rules and that might get him collared. Or perhaps after book 7 it's kind of like a penance sort of thing, but that feels kind of weird, no? I guess the whole overblot thing could kind of count as tomfoolery, but I don't know. I don't want to break Cater's streak, so I'm gonna go with Malleus. But I think it might be nicer to have this scenario be a case where perhaps the prefect tells Malleus something along the lines of, well, if people are afraid of your magic, why don't you just limit it for a bit and see what happens then? And then they ask the brain cell boys to help them brainstorm ideas on how to do this, to which Ace suggests the collar as a joke, and then the next day Malleus is walking around campus with one of Riddle's collars as an accessory, delighted at this new experience. This would cause a lot of buzz around campus, I imagine, and in a way, it is a bit of tomfoolery. So, with this specific scenario in mind, I'm locking in my choice of Mal. Our next question was, would you rather attend the Flowers Spring concert with Lilia or Silver? For me, this is an easy Lilia pick because the guy is in the pop music club and I can envision him having gone to a lot of concerts in the past, probably because he's in the pop music club, so I'd take him with me to this one. I think that he'd prefer for Silver to have the experience, but I just don't trust that Silver would be awake the whole time. It'd also be much more entertaining if Lilia was just going to try to join in or ask to sing along with the flowers, I think. Is that allowed? Probably not. Would Lilia try anyway? Absolutely. After all, when has the Bat Fae ever allowed rules to stop him? Even during Portfest, he disregards Riddle's directive to stay out of the kitchen and adds his own special Lilia twist to Class E's clam chowder, so why wouldn't he also try to sing with the flowers? It's way more fun that way anyway. I'm sure the ensuing spectacle would be delightful to watch unfold. Speaking of musical feats, our next question was, would you rather sing the Hedgehogs a song with Sebek or Jack? Luckily, we got two freshmen picked by the wheel for this question, so I'm just going to assume that they were hanging out with Ace and Deuce and Heartslabyul when a hedgehog sneezed, and then got whisked away into the proceedings. Now, if I had to pick just one to be present for this hypothetical scenario, I'm going to pick Sebek because I think it'd be super funny to watch him sing, since I imagine he'd be extremely serious about it. Jack would be too, I suppose, but there is something about Sebek's loud insistence that makes the mental image of him singing to the critters way more interesting to me. There's a part of this too where I can see Sebek scoffing at the tradition before he gets baited into participation by Riddle. A little tease about how terribly pitiful Malleus's retainers must be if they can't handle a simple task like this would be all that Sebek needs to hear before he is right there with the rest of the card soldiers, singing his heart out and making sure he has the best and loudest singing, all for Wakasama. It just amuses me greatly, this mental image that I now have, and it amuses me even more to think that Sebek now insists that Ace and Deuce take this hedgehog duty seriously whenever they complain about it. Our next question was, would you rather paint the roses red with Azul or Jack? I would love to spend any amount of time with Azul, since he is my favorite leech twin. However, in this specific scenario, I can guarantee that he'd Tom Sawyer me into doing all the work myself while still claiming Riddle to be in his debt, since he did technically paint a few roses, which technically qualifies as a favor, and I do not want to be in the middle of that drama. So, for this one, I'm going with Jack because he might think the task is weird or silly, but he's a good boy who will do it regardless as long as it's framed correctly. This could be an excellent opportunity for him to hone his magical focus, or for him to use his muscles in a traditional sense. Heck, you could even probably challenge him to a contest of skill to see who can paint the most roses the most accurately. He may act like he doesn't want to do it, but I have a feeling Jack would in fact want to paint the roses, so I'm gonna take him along with me. Our next question was, would you rather pick flowers from the garden on any day except Wednesday with Jamil or Ace? I do not understand why Wednesday of all days is banned from flower picking, but regardless, with these two boys as choices, I think I'm gonna have to go with Ace. I'd personally be a bit worried about picking the talking flowers instead of regular flowers, and while Jamil has the smarts to avoid that, I don't know that he would help me avoid that. Ace, on the other hand, doesn't want to lose his head, right? And if he were my chaperone, then he'd help me stay clear of those sentient flowers. I also think that Ace would be a better conversation partner than Jamil, since Jamil tends to keep to himself in order to make himself unassuming. Silence is nice, and having a bit of a break is something I think Jamil needs, but I just don't see this as the way that he would go about that. If Ace is yapping away about this or that, I'd be at least halfway entertained, and then flower bouquets could become even a bit of a collaborative effort, perhaps. We might even be able to goad some of the other Heartslabyul students into a bouquet creating competition, since Ace is very good at baiting folks into things. That would make this whole affair much more interesting, and perhaps we could even have Riddle judge the bouquets once we're done. The dorm would be blessed with pretty flowers for the next week at least, right? Our last question was, would you rather replace something you stole with Rook or Grim? Realistically, I think Grim would be much more likely to steal something from Heartslabyul and therefore would have to return it versus Rook. And I honestly have no idea what I would even have taken either, to be honest. I guess I could have accidentally taken a clipped rose and broken the rule that way, because otherwise I don't think I would have the guts to legitimately take something from someone else here. Rook is in an entirely different dorm, so I don't think that he would have to follow the rule, but I do think he'd be gentlemanly enough to comply. I think at the end of the day, I'm gonna have to go with Rook because I'm insanely curious about what it was that he pilfered. Is it something as innocent as a couple of Trey's prized science club strawberries, like the interaction Trey has with Jade in his labware vignette? Or did Rook take something much more meaningful in a much more dubious way from someone in the dorm? I can return my flower and get some hot gossip in the process, and that seems like a much better deal than going with Grim, or potentially even having to force Grim to return something he stole, presuming I was in the role of prefect. Also, if Rook was acting more like a guardian than a fellow thief, I'm sure his flowery language and overwhelming charisma could help save me from a collaring or some other consequence, depending on what it was exactly that I stole and from whom it was stolen. So, overall, Rook just seems to be the better pick, at least to me. And just like that, we're finished with our questions for today. Did you agree with my picks or disagree? Just how similar were we? And if you picked different folks, let me know why down below. I'd also love it if y'all could spare a moment to give a little feedback on the quiz function as well as this video format. If this is something y'all really enjoy, I can cook up some more, but I cannot know what I do not know, you know? If comments aren't your thing, though, you could always like and subscribe instead to show your support. And of course, before you go, I just have to remind you that you're amazing and I hope you have a wonderful day.